My name is Clara Mackenzie. I am 34 years old, and I live in Elmwood, Massachusetts. Being a therapist in a juvenile facility for boys may sound like a rough job to most people, but I absolutely adored those kids. They had been dealt a terrible hand in life, and I was there to help them navigate their rocky roads. What truly made my heart ache was not the boys I worked with, but rather the adults around me. The people I worked with, aside from my fellow therapists, had a complete lack of respect for therapy. To them, our work was just a waste of time and space, a marginal expense that they would rather cut than support. This made my workplace unbearable at times, but I stayed because I genuinely believed in the power of what I did, even if no one else in the facility did. I remember one day, during an especially heated staff meeting about the importance of maintaining the facility's harsh disciplinary methods over therapeutic approaches, I felt something snap in me. That was my world. Then, everything changed when I decided to speak up about the unprofessional behavior of one of my colleagues. I had endured whispers and sideways glances, feeling the weight of the environment around me swell under the pressure of unexpressed disdain. The man I accused of sexual harassment was connected to the person who ran the entire facility. The day I made my complaint, I felt a tightness in my stomach, a weird mix of determination and fear. I genuinely thought change could happen. However, I quickly learned that nothing changed for the man, but everything turned against me. Suddenly, it seemed like my colleagues were not just indifferent to therapy, they were out for me. I became public enemy number one, the target of whispers that slithered through the hallways whenever I passed. I felt isolated and exhausted. Life became particularly complicated during the COVID pandemic. Everyone was struggling, fighting anxiety and uncertainty. In those moments of darkness, I clung tighter to the boys I treated. They needed me, and I needed them. Day after day, I walked into that facility with a smile, hiding my growing disillusionment. But as the pandemic wore on, I realized that the environment had become untenable. I could not continue working somewhere where my rights and dignity were stripped away. Once a glimmer of light pierced through the clouds, a notice that many boys were transitioning out of the program, and with that news, I felt relief wash over me. I decided it was finally time to leave. The boys I had bonded with were to exit the program, and selfishly, I wanted to ensure they were equipped for life beyond those walls. I told the head of therapists that I would stay through the end of July, helping the boys and guiding the staff through the transition. She beamed with gratitude for my commitment. It was a gesture of kindness in a place that had little of it. Ironically, that was the last genuine smile I experienced in that place. It was just a few days later that I found myself in the head of the facility's office, and to my shock, they told me they were accepting my resignation early. It felt like a betrayal that coursed through my veins, but feigning a smile, I accepted. At that moment, I was not just leaving my job, I was plotting revenge. After I walked out of there for the last time, I felt a strange sense of satisfaction. What they did not know was that our IT guy was hopelessly ineffective. He had been tasked with creating a shared file directory on each therapist's computer, a simple task that would keep everything organized. When I attempted to save my files to this shared space, it kept failing. I repeatedly brought it up to him, and dutifully he nodded in agreement but never addressed the issue. So, I did what I had to do. I kept everything stored on my work computer, hidden away like treasures in a vault. I never shared my password with them, a fact they would soon regret. About a month after my departure, I met up with some of the therapists I had worked alongside. They were genuinely happy to see me thriving, and they shared snippets of information that made the corners of my mouth curl into a satisfied smile. It seemed the head of the therapy department was drowning in my old caseload. Because I had not left behind a guide to my files, she had to rewrite a staggering amount of paperwork that contributed to her frustration. Ultimately, she quit, only a few months into her new position. This was further proof that my absence had left them in chaos. I felt a rush of exhilaration as one of my friends said, "They just did not understand the value we brought. The place is suffering without us." But the laughter did not stop there. In their desperation to replace the therapist swiftly, they rehired a woman who had left long ago, someone everyone regarded as completely incompetent. During my brief tenure, she treated me poorly, often belittling me in front of the boys. It made me furious. When I found out that her husband had started flirting with me on Facebook, I decided to play a little game. I let the flirtation linger, waiting for the right moment to strike. Then I captured screenshots of our conversation and shared them with her. I found comfort in the thought that the tables had turned. I was no longer the underdog, but the puppet master pulling the strings from behind the curtain. As I sat back and observed the drama unfold, it was evident that the therapy department was in disarray, with hardly any surviving therapists left who truly cared about the boys. They were running out of funding, and to my satisfaction, I learned that they were struggling to hire replacements who could actually do the job. It made me reflect on how those who dismiss the value of what others bring, especially in a setting that relied heavily on those very contributions, will inevitably face consequences. Yet the ultimate twist came to me during one of those bittersweet reflections. After weeks of mirth and celebration surrounding my small victories, something gnawed at my conscience. I had thought my departure had already delivered the revenge I sought, and yet in that chaotic aftermath, I realized that my silence had not only been my shield, but also the executioner of my nemesis. I thought I wanted to see them suffer, but I never saw the joy and satisfaction taking root in my heart. The therapy department crumbled, and as much pleasure as that brought, I understood that there was a deeper truth. Compassion and grace can illuminate even the darkest of places. I had been hurt, but in seeking revenge, I learned it was more fulfilling to rise above. Silence had indeed been my vengeance, an insidious tool that went beyond mere destruction, but one ultimately rooted in the knowledge that I am an architect of my journey, one that left those who underestimated me with nothing more than ash. I look around now at how things have changed. The boys I once worked with are on new paths, and while I am no longer in their lives, I hope I left a little piece of hope behind. I have moved onward to a new beginning, one where I embrace new opportunities and possibilities. The facility will always remain a bittersweet memory. They may have thought they tossed me aside, but in the end, I simply walked away, looking back only to witness their grand falling apart, a testament to the importance of valuing everyone around you, not just the ones who seem most important. I learned that true power does not come from revenge, but the strength to let go. My silence echoed their failures and sowed the seeds for a future that is countless miles away from the place that tried to bury me. That, above all, is a victory worth celebrating.